Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the book The Boy in the Black Suit by Jonathan Reynolds. The book was published in 2015. It's about 250 pages long and is for teens about 12 and up. Matthew, the main character, recently lost his mother to cancer. And unfortunately, she passed away a few weeks before school was supposed to start, so he misses the first 3 weeks of school. But Matthew doesn't feel like he belongs at school anymore. His teachers are giving him special treatment. His friends are kind of avoiding him because they don't know what to say. The only friend that isn't avoiding him is his best friend, Chris. He's known Chris his whole life. They've dealt with things along that way. And this is what Matthew has to say about Chris being there for him. At least he had enough heart to come up to me and say something instead of just avoiding me, like death was some kind of disease that anybody could catch just by speaking to me. Everybody else was either staring at me or trying way too hard to not look at me at all. So Matthew was supposed to start a job at the beginning of school's work-study thing, and unfortunately, because he missed the first 3 weeks of school, he was forced to find a different job. So after school, his first day, he decides to go to the local fast food place to apply for a job. And there he meets this girl named Renee. So he thinks. And as he's applying for the job, a friend of the family, Mr. Ray, comes in and, is talking to Matthew. He's also the owner of the funeral home. So he's talking to Matthew, asking him what he's doing, and Matthew says that he's applying for a job at the fast food place. Mr. Ray tells him he doesn't want to work there and offers him a job at the funeral home. Matthew doesn't think that he can work at a funeral home given the fact that his mother just passed away, so he says no. But as he's finishing up the application for the fast food place, a girl actually throws up in the middle of the restaurant, and that kind of sealed the deal that he wasn't going to work at fast food. So he leaves with Mr. Ray. They go to the funeral home, and Matthew is essentially there to help Mr. Ray set up tables, flowers, food for the repast, which is the function after the funeral. So while he's there on that first day, Matthew asks Mr. Ray if he could sit in on the funeral. And Mr. Ray questions it. He doesn't know the person that is there. But Matthew feels like he has to go there. So this is what Matthew says. I wondered what the people at Mr. Jameson's funeral were doing, if they were laughing or crying or both. If someone was whispering stupid comments to the person next to them about how good Mr. Jameson looked dead. If Mrs. Jameson was exploding like I did. I just shrugged. I couldn't tell him why because I'm not sure I really knew why at the time. I just all of a sudden wanted to. I needed to. So Matthew does sit in on the funeral of Mr. Jameson, and sure enough, Mrs. Jameson does break down. She cries. She loses it. And he knows it's weird, but Matthew gets a sense of healing. It makes him feel a little bit better knowing that somebody else is in his shoes and that somebody else is crying over a loved one like he did when he lost his mother. So at the same time that Matthew is trying to get a job and trying to heal, his father is now an alcoholic. He doesn't take care of Matthew. He's out drinking during the day. So Matthew really is fending for himself. The only one that he has is his friend Chris and then Mr. Ray. Throughout Matthew sitting in on these funerals, he never really meets the family. He sneaks in after it's kind of started and leaves before it's over. But this one time he's compelled to stay. And the reason for that is Renee, the girl from the fast food place, is actually the granddaughter of the deceased. And at the funeral, Renee, who we actually find out is named Love, Love doesn't break down like Matthew expects. And Matthew needs to know why. And I'm going to go ahead and read this last bit from the book. I wondered what made her so strong, what made her so different. Maybe it was her grandmother, Gwendolyn. Maybe Mrs. Brown had been dying for a while and had time to prepare love, and that's why she was taking it so well. I wasn't sure, but I knew that this was the first funeral I had been to where I didn't find what I was looking for. And maybe that's why I stayed after. Maybe I wanted to know what she knew that I didn't. That thing that was keeping her so cool. I mean, her grandma just died, and her mom was gone, and judging by the fact that there were no men sitting next to her in the pew, her dad wasn't around either. And no brothers and sisters. Pretty much everything I was living every day, except she was obviously doing it better than me. I bet she didn't go to sleep listening to Tupac every night. I had to know the secret was. So Matthew gets to know Love a little bit better. They start building a relationship, and slowly, through conversations with Chris, with Mr. Ray, and with Love, Matthew starts to heal. At one point, in a conversation with Love, he discovers that something that he and Chris dealt with when they were younger is actually a major turning point in Love's life. And that kind of seals the deal for them. And this was a really good book, and it's not just about loss and dealing with loss, but it's actually about strength and overcoming things and finding strength from people and from situations that you would not likely think to find strength from. I highly recommend it. Again, it's The Boy in the Black Suit by Jonathan Reynolds.